Well, now to the exhibition part. Elizabeth Pons worked for many years in television as first editor, director, writer and team manager at TV3. After 2 years at BTV, she joined a new documentary production unit within Media Pro, Media 314. Together with Joan Úbeda, she coordinated and directed numerous productions for television, El Mewabi, Casal Rock, for Canal Plus, A4 and La Sexta. Currently, she is at Media Pro Exhibitions developing content and managing the creation of audiovisual and interactive projects for museums. And this year she couldn't make it, and Elizabeth is here with us today. Welcome to Interdux, and you have the floor. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for inviting me. Well, last year I had a family issue, but this year I'm very happy to be here. I'm not an expert at all on giving presentations there are people here who are great communicators. I'm not. But in any way, I will focus on very specific things, on my experience, and I hope that it will be useful for you. As Arnau said, I started the world of documentaries, and my story is the story of a migration. For many years, I worked in all kinds of documentary projects, and at a certain point in time, I needed to change. I needed a change, and I did not know exactly where to go, what to do, but I did want to change. At that time, I was developing a project, and I was in the middle of one that Ferran also mentioned, which is what's called Voices of a Generation, Veus d'una Generació. This was the last project that I developed, and it's a project that was born as a multi-platform project, and where the idea was to create a documentary that would be broadcast and about the crisis of young people about to join the labor market in the middle of the crisis. The project was developed with the idea of having an online platform, and you can still look it up, but there was the idea of creating a platform that was to generate an experience exchange. When it was about to happen, it's exactly when I left. When I was developing the project, as I said, I decided that I wanted a change, and I got a proposal which I'm still surprised about. I'm still surprised that I got it and that I accepted it. In Media Pro, there was a very small unit called Media Pro Exhibitions, and they had worked with exhibition projects. They had worked at the World Expo in Zaragoza, the Barcelona Forum of Cultures, the FC Barcelona Museum, and they gave me the opportunity to create the project at the Real Madrid Museum. They suggested that I develop the contents of the museum. Some people here know me and know that I don't like football, that I'm not very knowledgeable in technologies, and there are some people who are still surprised that I got this proposal, but I accepted it. And the proposal had an aspect that really interested me, which was learning new things, getting in touch with new ways of telling stories. In Veus d'una Generació, Voices of a Generation, I started feeling the need to reach people, reach audiences in a different way. And in the exhibition narrations, so this is what I would like to call them, also include many of the things that have been mentioned today, which amongst them the need of telling a story, looking amongst very different supports and platforms. And this really attracted me about this new proposal, and this is what I decided to do. And there I found a completely new world, because I got in touch with many different technologies, not only interactivity, which is what I'm going to focus on, but also the use of light, sound, space. At the beginning it was like too much input, tremendous input, just at the service of telling a story. In this case, the story of Real Madrid, but it depends, of course, on the project. One of the main changes and one of the most significant challenges that I felt when I got there is that I worked with a completely multidisciplinary team. This is why this kind of exhibition project is also a sort of a transmedia project. We have programmers, architects, content managers and creators, all of them working through these different narratives that we implement in the space available to us. And this is highly inspiring. It is stressful and tiring because I have learned on the go, learned by doing, but it's always very interesting. And I don't know if there are university professors here. I don't know if this is exactly a transmedia project, but I do believe that it is, and I will tell you how we can connect with some of the things that have been mentioned here today. This is another part of the team, not as high tech, but still, and this is the presentation video, the result of a 3-year project, 2,000 square meters. I started creating part of the contents, and in the second phase I managed the whole project. And I talk about this project because I know it very well, and it's one of the projects at exhibitions where interactivity plays a critical role. There is an interactive historical element here. We will see it in more detail later on. Interactive panels that connect to social media, lots of audiovisual elements at Media Pro. Media Pro is very important. Football is very important in football and also in audiovisual world of audiovisual. So it has a very strong audiovisual component. We work with the script of this piece, soundtracks, all the different panels, and everything else in the project. This is an interactive mosaic. People can insert their picture in real time. And this is the room with the 10 Champions League cups. This project, as I said earlier, interactive elements play a critical role. And one of them is what we saw in the central part, an interactive element on the history of the club, and it's very successful. You will see it also in the next slide. Around 1 million people visit this museum every year. The number of visitors has increased by 15%. So both in the way we present the interactive elements is based on the number and the flow of visitors. You can look at the history with 12 stations next to each other, because otherwise it had been a complete traffic jam. This is an interactive element which cannot be visited anymore because it's in reduced format, and I really like it because I think that it's a very telling picture. They wanted a piece on the life of Di Stefano. He is a legend in the club. And the first thing I said in a museum with such young and international audiences, it would not be very interesting. But it's a very simple piece with a very agile navigation, browsing, and it really worked well. It was successful, and it brought the figure much closer to the audience, the visitors. People really liked it. I don't know. Well, you can see it here. I don't know whether it was because it was very large but the result really was surprising. Because people discovered, well, they got close to the interactive piece, and my training in the world of documentaries made me document the installation very well, because the moments in life of Di Stefano repeated themselves once and again, and it was a very rich piece. And in the same support, the second phase in this video, we created another interactive piece about the legendary players at the club, so the most fundamental players in the club's history.
I think it's interesting to tell you, in this interactive, what we did was implement a new systems to register users' navigation. One of the things we're concerned with when we do our productions is to see really if people are indeed using and how they are using our interactives. It's something we saw in another project, and in all these productions there's a risk factor, and that is to see how the audience, people who work in the web, I suppose, you have very many indicators for traffic and people, but we have to analyze, because we don't have it, we have to analyze whether what we're doing is working or not. And so we did this interactive, and another one we did a test, which is a user registry, and then we see how many people are on, what menus do they use, what languages, things that allow us to analyze and improve for future productions, even the ones we have there. Because of the here we draw several conclusions, and we determine the button size, position, just to improve the interactivity part. This is something we could not do in the first part because it was very complicated in terms of programming, but we can implement it in the second one. This is something that I also like. Year after year, technology evolves so that we get the chance to do things that were almost impossible to do the previous year. So it's something that is constantly changing. This follow-up web is important because it allows us to improve on our work and the things we do. Another thing I'd like to tell you about is other ways of interacting. Up to here, I've spoken of two pieces which are informative, but we also use interactivity in other senses. For example, here we see a tracking of the activity of the club, which was hard to do, but we managed anyway. This is something that's connected in real time, and every 3 minutes it gathers all the data and it shows the evolution in real time. When we had this, we missed a little more participation, and we added something that worked very nicely, tweeting from the museum with the tour hashtag we get this. People like it, and it's a way of making them check that we are indeed in real time. Otherwise, it could just be a video. The fact that you see it's working, it happened with many people. They send the message and they say it doesn't work, and then when they see it, they put it in the Twitter. All this participation. Here's you have the installation in the map. This participation line this is something I participated in at the beginning. The Milan Museum. A system with RCID bracelets with which we can track the visitors in the installations. We can also interact. People can vote and participate on we can recognize the visitor, so we personalize their visit to the museum, and we can also have reliable data regarding who visits the museum, how much time they spend on the facilities. This is particularly interesting in my opinion because it has an extension of the visit. Here you see how it is executed. This voting mechanism has allowed us to develop a post-visit on the web. Once you've visited the museum, you can have access through your login. You can go to a memory book of your visit. When you liked something particularly from home at ease, you can revisit what you liked most. And in the website, you have all these scores of what is being liked more. So the physical interactivity in the visit is extended to the web. We have a longer visit, and we start moving on to the creation of communities of fans, and you can dynamize it as much as you can. I think it's a clear example of how we implement all these narratives and how far we can take them in a production. To finish, I'd like to speak of a project of some colleagues in the city of Mexico, which is an interactive center to interpret the city where there is a specific facility and a more poetic side of it. This is a video explaining the keys to understand the project. It's based on this model, a map on a giant model. This mapping will also have an interactive side at the end because it will be able to interpret data from the city in real time. This is on the model. We project the history of the city of Mexico. I see I'm running out of time, so I will move a little more quickly. In our website, you can look at these things in detail. This is the building I wanted to show you, this is a participatory mechanism, but more poetic. Wishes for the City of Mexico with 4 categories of wishes. And when you think of what you want, you include it in one of these categories, and the interaction is very easy. As we blow a candle every year to make a wish, we blow, and the interaction is open. And then you get a bean, which has a campaign that will have a viral development. And there will be an online follow-up of the seeds and how they grow and the growth of the wishes. This is something we spoke of at lunchtime. In some of these, we take some risks. And in the end, you don't really know what is going to happen until you apply it and the physical problems of it. But in any case, it does have a surprise element, so that people are always surprised and can enjoy. To finish, let me tell you, I've been working on this for 4 years, and I think that this interactivity or others, because now we're speaking of interactivity through light and smell and taste. We're trying out several things. Interactivity is key to surprise the visitor, to capture their attention, and to dynamize the visits of the new exhibit space. I think technology allows for infinite things, but there's always a base, which is to know what it is we want to tell and what elements we will have, what documentation, still basic, because otherwise you run the risk of getting lost and do things, technologically fascinating things, but empty after all. And that's something that really concerns me. So that's it on my behalf. If you have any questions, I'll be delighted to answer. Thank you.
Tenemos tiempo para una pregunta.